Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to really dig into the core knowledge from interesting sources.
That's the idea.
And today we're looking at a life that, well, it wove together some really intense personal stuff, a global education, and this deep, deep commitment to national development.
Yes, specifically in energy, which is just so vital.
Exactly. So our deep dive today focuses on the remarkable life and legacy of Dr. Engineer Sydney Zuso Gata.
Mm-hmm. And we're working from a pretty specific source, a transcript from a YouTube video. It was actually a commemoration piece, framing him as a national hero.
Today, we gather at this sacred place where we lay to rest the luminaries of our great motherland, Zimbabwe, who consistently and persistently fought and sacrificed their lives for the independence, for the freedom and democracy.
Right. So our mission here for you listening is to kind of unpack how this one person's journey, starting from seeing colonial brutality up close to becoming this top expert in engineering and energy, how that path profoundly shaped Zimbabwe's infrastructure, its whole future vision.
We want to cover some insights into a life that was just fundamentally dedicated to national progress.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Dr. Gata, born December 1946, Chipin District, Manicaland Province.
And the source really makes a point of saying this region was under particularly brutal white colonial rule. Very oppressive.
So that context is key.
It absolutely is. And you see how those early years shaped him. The armed liberation struggle wasn't abstract for him. It was deeply personal.
How so?
Well, tragically, his siblings, William, Alec, and Lycan, they all perished during the war. The source says this left a, quote, lasting imprint on his life choices.
Wow. That's profound. So it wasn't just politics.
No, it seems like it drove him to build something, not just oppose, but create.
That makes sense. And his awareness, his revolutionary consciousness, it grew partly from being taught by Reverend Ndabaningi Sithole.
The founding president of ZANU, a national hero himself.
And also from witnessing the regime's brutality himself, things like forced relocation.
Yeah, moving people to these awful, dry, fly-infested areas like Paquita and Gukwe, just terrible conditions.
So seeing that kind of systematic oppression, how does that shape someone's view on, say, national unity later on?
Well, that's a really interesting connection the source hints at. It mentions Zimbabwe is a unitary state. Regionalism or tribalism must be rejected by all.
Okay.
And it stresses promoting national unity and social cohesion. It suggests that experiencing that level of oppression made him see that only, broad national unity could really stand against it.
So it forged a commitment to the whole nation.
Exactly. Which makes his later work on national infrastructure feel even more significant, doesn't it? It wasn't just engineering, it was nation building.
Definitely. Okay, let's pivot from that struggle to his education, because his academic path was, frankly, quite incredible.
It really was. So after primary, he went to Headland Secondary, then Fletcher High for O and A levels. Standard path so far, maybe.
But then he goes global.
Right. First, a general science degree in Canada, then a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from, the source calls it Wynn University. Okay. So that's the start of this really trailblazing journey abroad.
And it didn't stop there. He moves to the UK.
Yeah, and this is interesting. He taught at the University of London while doing a master's in mechanical engineering.
Wow, okay. Multitasking.
Majoring in aeronautical and fluid mechanics at Chelsea College of Aeronautical Engineering. But the really forward-thinking part is PhD. He stayed at Chelsea College but majored in solar energy engineering.
Solar energy. Back then, we're talking, 70s, early 80s?
Exactly. That's the point. Think about the energy landscape then. Solar wasn't mainstream. It wasn't the popular choice, especially, for African students abroad.
So this really speaks to his vision.
Absolutely. The source calls him brilliant and a far-sighted student, a trailblazer. He wasn't just following trends. He was anticipating the future.
Thinking about long-term energy security for developing nations.
Way ahead of the curve, long before climate change was a big public discussion. And then he lectured at City University in London, Department of Mechanical Engineering and Aeronautics, really solidifying that expertise.
So he's got this promising academic career building in the UK.
Could have easily stayed.
But he didn't. The source calls him an unflinching patriot. After Zimbabwe's independence, he decides to return.
Yeah, driven by this desire to contribute back home.
And what were his first steps back in Zimbabwe?
Well, initially he taught Faculty of Engineering at the University of Zimbabwe. Then he joined the Ministry of Manpower Development. And there, he was really instrumental, part of the team coordinating the setup of national training centers, polytechnics all across the country.
So, building human capital, foundational work.
Absolutely crucial for a newly independent nation.
But then came arguably his most defining role.
Right. He became the first black general manager at the Electricity Supply Commission, the ESC.
Which eventually became ZESA, the Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority.
Exactly. He really advanced that transition. And under his leadership at ESC ZESA, some major national goals were achieved.
Like what specifically?
Well, expanding the energy sector, obviously. But crucially, getting power to more communities, to growth points, to rural areas. This was vital as the economy was trying to diversify and include the black majority.
So it wasn't just about megawatts, it was about access, democratizing electricity.
Precisely. Before him, huge parts of the population, especially rural folks, were just off the grid. His work fundamentally changed lives, enabled businesses, improved basic quality of life for so many. It really underpinned that post-independence economic shift.
And big projects happened under his watch, too,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. He directly oversaw the construction of Hwange Power Station, stages 1 and 2.
That's the big coal
The
plant.
really big one. Added 600 megawatts to the grid. That's a massive amount of power.
Huge.
And along with that, building the main 330 kV transmission lines, the electricity superhighways, plus the regional interconnectors.
And didn't the rural electrification program start then, too?
Yes, it was initiated under his leadership. That shows the focus wasn't just on big industry, but socioeconomic development across the board. Real strategic leadership.
His influence wasn't just contained within Zimbabwe, though, was it?
No, not at all. It went global. He was appointed regional coordinator for the World Energy Council, specifically for sub-Saharan Africa.
Which actually led him back to the UK for a time.
It did. And while he was with the World Energy Council, around 95, 96, he held some pretty significant positions.
Such
Chairman
as?
in their status committee and deputy chairman focusing on energy finance for developing countries.
Okay, so he's influencing policy and finance at an international level now.
Right, and bringing that high-level perspective back, presumably, to benefit Africa.
And the international roles continued after
Yes,
that.
from 97 to 2000, he was an advisor at the African Development Bank, the AFDB.
On what specifically?
Electricity, coal, nuclear energy sectors within their Africa Energy Program. He was also executive director of Integrated Energy Systems Limited and seconded to the Trade and Investment Bank of Zimbabwe.
Busy man.
Very. But maybe one of his most lasting regional impacts was being a founding member of the Southern African Power Pool, SAPP.
Okay, SAPP. For listeners who might not know, what exactly is that and why is it important for the region?
Right, good question. So SAPP is essentially, think of it as a cooperative for electricity in Southern Africa. It allows countries in the SADC region to coordinate how they plan, operate, and even trade electricity with each other.
Ah, so they can share power.
Exactly. It's fundamental for energy self-sufficiency. If one country has a surplus, another has a shortage, they can trade. It helps optimize generation across the whole region, makes the grid more stable, and avoids individual crises.
Which helps drive industrialization and modernization.
Precisely. It's a strategic powerhouse, pardon the pun. And his involvement shows how his international work fed directly back into building regional African capacity. Real commitment there.
Now, alongside all this technical and international work, he was also politically involved.
Yes, described as a loyal cadre of ZESA UPF. He held positions like Provincial Secretary for Economic Affairs and later Provincial Secretary for Transport and Welfare.
But the source makes a point of saying he didn't wear his qualifications like a badge of superiority.
Yeah, it says he never carried his academic or engineering pedigree with a sense of superiority. Suggests humility, a connection to the people, despite his high-flying career.
His career path wasn't linear either, was it? He moved between public and private sectors.
Right. Between 2010 and 2019, he was actually in the private sector, a managing partner at EMC Continental Private Limited.
Doing what?
Specializing in advising and sponsoring regional power development projects. So leveraging his expertise from a different angle, trying to bring in private investment.
Shows adaptability.
Definitely.
And then a major return in 2019.
Yes, reappointed as executive chairman and CEO of ZESA Holdings. Back at the helm.
And what was the focus during this second tenure?
A big push to revive and expand Zimbabwe's power capacity again. Key achievements being the completion of Huang Unit 7 and Unit 8. More critical baseload power.
But wasn't he also looking beyond coal by then?
Yes, very much so. He became a strong advocate for renewable energy. The source notes he consistently emphasized gradually transitioning our energy mix from fossil fuels.
That foresight again.
And his leadership, his impact, is recognized right near the end. Just a week before he passed away, SAPP honored him during their 30th anniversary.
For what specifically?
For his immense contribution to the energy discourse in the region, calling his leadership transformational.
That's quite a validation.
It is. And this whole story, this consistency, this adapting vision, especially pushing for renewables later on, it does raise a big question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Well, how do countries manage ambitious development goals like Zimbabwe, aiming for middle income status by 2030, while also planning for that necessary sustainable energy transition?
And promoting science and tech education for the youth to drive it all.
Exactly. His life seems to embody that challenge, showing that you need the infrastructure, the manufacturing base, but also that forward-looking sustainable energy policy. It's a balancing act.
Dr. Engineer Sydney Zuso Gata, he was clearly so many things. An engineer excellency, as the source puts
An educationalist, a practitioner.
But beyond the labels, a profound patriot, wasn't he? A real trailblazer.
Yeah, his contribution to Zimbabwe's energy, its infrastructure, its human capital, it's just immense. Hard to overstate.
His life really stands as a testament to that kind of dedication and vision.
It does. And the source material we used, it ends with this quite powerful call to action. It talks about needing a new breed of heroes and encourages every Zimbabwean to, do their part, to lay their own individual and collective bricks to build the country.
A reminder that progress isn't just down to one person, even someone as remarkable as Dr. Gata. It's shared. So, for you listening, maybe that's the thought to leave you with. Inspired by a life like this, one so dedicated to national advancement, what specific bricks, individual or collective, can you contribute in your own work, your community?
Yeah, what's your part in fostering development and progress?
Something to think about.